Lord Finesse. J.O.
The American's basically a glorified Conference USA / Big East. Basically, it's like the football version of the Big East because, I mean, the Big East doesn't have any football schools in it, but all of these schools, with the exclusion of Wichita State, who just got added to the American, all these are basically football schools. And that's the reason they're probably not in the Big East is because they want to play football too. Whatever. But anyways, the American Conference, top tier teams, Wichita State, definitely the top tier team. Very good team, very veteran team. Lots of seniors on this team. Connor Frankamp, their 3-point shooter, that's pretty good. Landry Shamet, who is their point guard, who's a sophomore, who's really good. Shaq Morris is their big man inside. He's pretty good. To me, he doesn't average enough rebounds for as big as he is, but he's a good player. And then you talk about some of the glue guys, Marcus McDuffie, who's been injured at the first this year, but that's definitely came on in the last couple games. Talk about Zach Brown. Zach Brown's a very good defender for this squad. And then Rashad Kelly and Daryl Willis they kind of play the 4 and they'll play the 5 if Shaq Morris is having foul issues. Real good team here. I like Wichita State. I think they can make a deep run. I see them, handling in the American Conference this year. The only team that I see them really having any issues with would maybe be Cincinnati or SMU. Mainly Cincinnati, not as much SMU. So let's move on to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a good team. They're bringing a lot of the team they had back last year with the exclusion of Troy Copain, which ran the offense. He was the conductor, as I like to call, which is basically the point guard. He runs the offense. So they kind of had to replace that. They got a transfer in from Sacred Heart. I think his name is Kane Broom, and he's come off the bench. Kid named Jennifer has been starting, but he's not as good as Broom. The point guard is definitely an issue for Cincinnati, something that they're figuring out as we speak. But when you talk about the core of their team, Jared Cumberland, very good player. He was a freshman last year, sophomore this year. He's coming on. Gary Clark, 2-time American Defensive Player of the Year. Real good player. I like him a lot. He's definitely became more of a scorer this year to help that team out. He can rebound. He's definitely going to be good at the next level, I think. Jacob Evans, who's definitely their scorer, probably their best player. Well, Gary Clark's their best player, but Jacob Evans is a close second on this team. And then you talk about the transfer from NC State, Kyle Washington, who's had somewhat of a tough year, but he's used way more in this offense than he was when he was at NC State. SMU, Shaq Milton is the main guy on their team. Jari Foster is another guy that was on the team last year, but a lot of new guys, a lot of young guys. Jimmy Witt, I think he's transferred in. He's a good player. I like Jimmy Witt. And just a couple of other glue guys. McMurray who transferred in from USF. A freshman, Chargoy. I can't really say his name, but he's a freshman who's done pretty good, pretty under recruited. But they're replacing a lot of their guys from last year. When you talk about Ben Moore, Semi Ojale, and then Sterling Brown. I think Sterling Brown or Shannon Brown. I can't remember his name. I think Shannon Brown's his name is Sterling Brown. Shannon Brown was an NBA player back in the day. But I think SMU can make the tournament. I think they're a good team. But they start the second tier of the American Conference. Next team I'm looking at is Houston. Houston's a really good 3-point shooting team. Rob Gray, one of the better scorers in the American Conference. If he's on that night, it's going to be tough to beat them. And then they got, I think his name is Corey Davis. He's a 3-point shooter, pretty good. But this team doesn't have a whole lot of depth. There's another Davis on the team that can step out and shoot threes, but not a whole lot of depth. They had a big man, Braxton or something like that. I can't remember his name for sure, but he went down with an ankle injury. But he had a really good game against Temple the other night. I like Houston, their ability to shoot threes. I think they can be pretty good this year. Next team I'm going to talk about is Temple. Temple's got a good core of players. When you talk about Obi, can't say his last name, but they call him Obi. He's number 0. Pretty tall kid. He's all right. Quentin Rose is a really good player. Probably I'd say their best. I like Quentin Rose. I think he's probably their best player. Some other guys on the team. I'm going blank here. Shiz Alston is another player that's pretty good for them. There's one more. I can't think of his name. But Temple's got a pretty good team. I don't know if Temple's going to make the tournament this year. I don't really see Temple as like a tournament team as much, but I see them, fighting and definitely being a bubble team throughout the year. The other one is Josh Brown. Josh Brown is a really good player. And then you talk about UCF. UCF's dealt with a lot of injuries so far this year. Their best player, BJ Taylor, went down with a foot injury to start the year. They don't have coach's son, Aubrey Dawkins, who's going to be out all year. But they do have Taco Fall, who's like 7'3" or 7'6". I can't remember. He's really tall, though. Let me look how tall he is real quick. 7'6" is what. 7'6", really tall. AJ Davis is a player that's came on this year for them. That's been good. But yeah, losing BJ Taylor was tough, and not having Aubrey Dawkins this year has been tough too. When you talk, I just don't think UCF's going to make not make the tournament. With the injuries that they're dealing with. But this isn't a bad team. They're gonna get some wins here in the American this year. Next team, Tulsa. Tulsa definitely is in somewhat of a rebuild right now. I don't think Tulsa will make a tournament this year, but I think they'll be an all right team. They've started 3-0 in the American so far. Junior Eto is their best player. He's averaging a good amount of points this year. Probably their best player. Sterling Taplin, their point guard, a pretty good player. Corey Henderson hasn't been amazing this year, but he had a really good game and basically won the game for them against UConn. Was hitting threes all day. He's a good 3-point shooter. And then another guy that's came on this year, Martins Ebanu, who's been good. So all those players have been good for Tulsa. We'll see what happens with Tulsa, but definitely a middle-of-the-road American team. Tulane has definitely been a surprise for me this year. Cameron Reynolds is this kid that he can step out. He's left-handed. He can step out, shoot threes, but he's more of an inside guy. He averaged 17 points last year. He's averaging around the same, I think 16 and a half this year. And they've got this other cat, Melvin Frazier, who's got some really cool hair, really good defensive player, real lanky. I like him at the next level. Melvin Frazier is his name, number 35 for Tulane. Go check him out. Him and Cameron Reynolds are the main guys on this team. A sophomore from France, Ray Imbo has been pretty good this year. He's definitely has a bigger role than he did last year. I like him too. Tulane, Mike Dunleavy Sr. is the head coach. I really like what he's doing with the team. They do struggle if they have to play teams with size, but when they play a team like SMU that doesn't have very good size, they did just fine and they were able to win. So Tulane did hit some threes that game. They had a really bad game against Tulsa, just looked out of sorts. Melvin Frazier didn't look like he came to play that day. Cameron Reynolds didn't look like he came to play that day either. And those two guys averaged the most amount of points of a duo in the American Conference. So if they're not on, their team is pretty fucked. UConn's the next team I'm talking about. I really am not sold on UConn. I don't like UConn. They lost Gilbert at the first of the year, who had a shoulder injury last year, who's already out for the year again this year. And then Terry Larrier and Jalen Adams is mainly their only offense. This is really is tough. It's very tough. They don't really have anybody other than that. A kid named Vital has been coming off the bench. That's been pretty good. But this team, just without Gilbert, it's going to need a lot of help, and there's just not a lot of help for it. And a conference that's been getting better and better as we speak. And then you talk about Memphis. Memphis is having a tough year. They lost both the Lawson brothers last year. And they rebuilt with a good amount of with a good amount of transfers. Markel Crawford, he left also this last year, but Jeremiah Martin is probably their best player, and then Karan Davenport and Kareem Bruton, who have transferred over. I like Kavan Davenport and Jeremiah Martin, but this team it doesn't have enough talent to really get it done. USF's an all right team. They're definitely getting better, but I do think that they're a back half team and they're not that great. And then ECU's not good. Their head coach left after like a couple games. Kentrell Barkley is a pretty good player for them, and then BJ Taylor, he has some of the most points in the American Conference altogether. So, but yeah, I mean, American Conference, you're looking at maybe 3-4 teams, maybe 5.
Fucking around with Gucci ain't gonna lead to an injury. Treat you like third period, turn you to history. Niggas say he did this, but niggas a